unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome to the Self-Love Show. Oh man, I'm so excited to just participate in today's show. I am Trish Wright, self-love coach, and this is my amazing, this way is my wonderful co-host, Dawn Lightamore, spiritual psychology coach. And if you're watching or listening right now, go ahead and share this out because you are in for a really magical treat. We have Dr. Saida Désilets. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. I was practicing. So today we're going to be talking about desire in our relationship to self-love. So how our desire is the compass we all seek and what that means for our self-love journey. Yes. So in the show, we will redefine what desire actually is and how the practice of cultivating our true desires not only is one of the liberation, but equally one of activation and enlivenment. Dr. Saida Désilets wants to live in a world filled with audacious, sexually sovereign people living life on their own terms. I want that too. We're here. Yes. As a counterculture creatrix, I love this, TED Talk speaker, body-philosopher, and author, her work has global impact through inviting professionals and the public to understand the importance of sexuality and sexual sovereignty. When not researching or creating transformational programs, Dr. Saida enjoys leading wilderness safaris in South Africa and dancing Kizomba.
Yes.
All right. So tell me, just to start off, tell me what your relationship to self-love is now and where it started however long ago.
Yeah. Self-love to me is like every breath. It's a ability for me to have connection with myself. If I feel disconnected, it's almost like I've lost track of the self-love. I feel connected, and then the self-love is just radiating out. Self-love is also boundaries. It's because I'm a very busy person, also an attractive person. So you need boundaries in the world when you're either busy or out in the street and you're getting a lot of attention, whatever. So healthy boundaries, I find, is an act of self-love, and exercising those boundaries with a state of grace and beauty and joy versus like aggression or like strangeness or anger. I think that's also an act of self-love because I'm deeply respecting myself, and then I'm modeling how I want other people to pay attention to me, to love me, to interact with me. So that's a little bit how I define it.
I love that. What a great description of it. It's true. When we are connected from ourselves, then we can't be present for what's going on in the now moment, because we're not feeling connected.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to make choices that would be self-loving if we are disconnected, because we're not able to feel like what's arising, what's going on. Am I freaked out? Am I angry? Am I sad? So that ability to be connected allows us to make choices that are very loving, very respectful, and life-enhancing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, that'll.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And very sovereign. And so just to share, my journey of self-love looked very different maybe 2 years ago, but through the self-love show and through learning self-empathy and compassionate communication techniques and really looking at really dissolving my codependency, I've been really, it's evolved into a practice of, I call it negotiating reality with someone. So how can the boundaries, and we've all seen the meme or heard the saying is boundaries are the place in which I can love myself and you at the same time. And so in that place of finding Like, how can I lean in without losing myself? And how can I stay present? Can I stay with what is right now? And part of that exploration of self-love, and my definition of love, what it looks like now, is the radical acceptance of what is.
Yes.
Can I sit in just accepting that I am a wildly crazy, messy, random, and patterned human? And can I just be with that? Can I be with the crazy desires and the fantasies that I have, and the things that I manifest, and can I be there? Can I just own that place?
Yeah.
And not try to fit into a social construct or a social idea or something that actually isn't serving me or the people that I love, because my inauthenticity is actually a form of self-hate or a self-flagellation, right?
Yes.
So that's how mine has
Very
kind of
nice.
evolved over the last few years. And I do want to ask a question about sovereignty, because this, and I know that you probably know this. I know I'm very like, I'm going. So what I've noticed in the spiritual scene is that there's this idea that sovereignty is a place that we kind of, I'm going to do what I want, and regardless, like disregard anybody else's feelings or any of those things. And it doesn't live like that for me. So sovereignty is like, yes, living in your truth, your authenticity, and your integrity. But I'm also, for me, in the place of my freedom. Like, if I'm not free, if nobody else is free,
Right.
like my freedom only expands and is empowered by your freedom. Like your sexual freedom and my sexual freedom, like that is a permission for others, right? So I'm curious about your definition of sovereignty, and if it's, yeah, I'm just going to stop there and let you take it
Rant.
and
So-
on me too.
It's a multi-layered answer, so I'll try and do that in a really logical way if I can. So when I was doing a lot of the work that I do, I was in over 16 countries in the world and about 20 weekends a year. So lots of different cultures, age groups, orientations, backgrounds, you name it. It was so different, but there was one common thread in all the groups. And it was this emergence of what I saw and called sexual sovereignty. Now, before we get to the sexual sovereignty part, just what is sovereignty? I realized that sovereignty has only really been used to define a country or a sovereign, meaning like a queen or a king. It's never been used for regular people. And I am actually meaning it for regular people. So what is that? It's the idea that you matter, and the space around you matters, and that you actually can claim and embody not only your own physical body, but the space around you. Very, very important. The other aspect of sovereignty that I learned was actually through the wilderness. When you're in the wilderness, you notice that every living creature is completely sovereign. That means they're born knowing what to do, and they live according to their own, say, raison d'être, their own code. And the other beautiful thing is that they're all sovereign and yet interdependent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so that to me is true sovereignty. When I can really be in myself, you can really be in yourself, and Dawn can be in herself, and the three of us are here, very different, embodying fully, maybe different opinions, different orientations, and we appreciate what emerges in the co-created space versus someone who's trying to dominate a space and make everybody the same, or everyone think the same, or everyone behave the same. So a lion is very different than a hyena, than a giraffe, than a snake, and yet they all cohabitate the exact same space, and they do it actually quite peacefully. And what I also loved about the wilderness is there's this natural knowing. Every sovereign being has a particular understanding of the amount of space they need to exist peacefully. So if you approach a wild animal and maybe you step like within 1 foot of this outer boundary, the sovereign boundary, they literally only move away on 1 foot. They don't like run away 20 feet. If you go in a little fast, they'll move faster. But in general, they try and reserve and preserve energy. Now, think about that in a human situation. It's not true. We're very, very reactive. And yet, and we also don't claim the sovereign space. So it's something we can learn to come back to. I think we had it when we did live a little more in harmony with the wild ones. And somehow domestication, we've lost a sense of our own space and the value of that space. But also, as you were saying, Trish, deeply respecting the space of another. And this is incredibly important, say, in relationship and maintaining self-love in a relationship. You're going to need to have a claiming of that space, but also equally really respecting the space, the intimate space of other. And then where those spaces converge and how you dance at that convergent point, I think, is where beauty can emerge.
That's gorgeous. I love everything you just said. It's I resonate with what you say.
Thank you.
I too feel like sovereignty is also related to, you know, spirituality. Like our spiritual self is innately sovereign. We come here knowing our destiny. We step in choosing our family systems, and we have a purpose. Each soul has a purpose. Come to live it, and it's really allowing ourselves to express through our freedom, you know, and giving each being the opportunity to be fully sovereign, fully free, fully themselves, and respecting that with one another always, you know, and holding that as sovereign and sacred in your heart for each being on the planet, including yourself, and really holding in the loving essence of who each person is and seeing through loving, right? Seeing each situation, each person through loving eyes, right? And hearing with the ear of your heart, the loving. And so that always is maintaining that vibration of like, you are sovereign, I am sovereign, we are sovereign together, sharing in the same essence of love.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, Dawn, the way I say that in really practical terms, which is a really important practice. So for those who want a little mini practice, it's the practice of not only seeing yourself as powerful, because that's a sovereign choice, but seeing everybody else as powerful. Now, why is that a radical practice? Because we live in a woundology and victimology culture.
Yes.
So if we want to change and really step into true sovereign living and really being of service and starting to co-create what we would love together, which is what's needed to move forward, then essentially we need to start seeing ourselves as powerful in everyone else. So what does that mean? If I have a problem with Trish and I don't see her as powerful, I'm going to change how I communicate. I'm not necessarily going to tell her the truth or what's really going on for me. I'm going to try and manipulate her somehow because she's not strong enough to deal with my truth. But if I see her as powerful, I'm like, Trish, like this thing is like, it's difficult for me to say this, but you know, when this happened, this is how I felt, and I really want to work things out, but I don't know how. And now we're in a co-creative space where both people are powerful. And I find this to be an extraordinary practice, and people have a very hard time with it because they see how many people are victimized. But just because everyone does have a victimized experience does not mean that they live as victims. They are sovereign and they're powerful. And yes, they've had hard experiences. But when you're in a very hard experience, so I work also with organizations that deal with the poorest, say, women on the planet and empowering them. Those women do not appreciate being seen as victims. They don't want hand-me-downs. They want you to reflect back to them their power, their sovereignty, that you've got this, and I will stand with you as you sort this out for yourself. So I wanted to bring that up because I think that's a very important part of understanding sovereignty in a practical way.
It's also dissolving the codependency triangle.
Mm-hmm.
So when you victimize, you create someone as a perpetrator or a savior. And so it's this place of shifting the way that we show up for another person. Like we're all at different levels of our experience. Like that's just where we're at. And just because someone isn't as far along or they're whatever it is, it's their experience and their evolution. So if I can, and I love what you said, there's to stand with that person in their journey. And that is part of my definition of sovereignty is like that. It's like, oh, I'm a chaotic, wonderful mess. And I'll just like, hey, I'm here to love you, and I'm here to love me, and I'm going to stand with you in that place of your choosing to step forward. Like that's where I'm going to stand with you. And and it's not about fluffing someone. And I don't know if you guys know this term, you're like, oh, you're just great and everything. And no, like your shit's hard. And I see you in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also rooted in firmly holding a stance that every being has all the inner resources. Everything is on the inside to deal with their circumstances, their life curriculum, anything that is in their world, whatever is coming forward, that each person has the ability to tune in, has the answers, has the solutions, and is fully intact inside their own beingness, connected to the God source that's inside of them at all times and has all the answers. So when you operate from that belief structure, you automatically give the other person their sovereignty as seeing them in it and holding them in that vibration. You're calling them forward into it because you're holding that vibration in your own heart for them. And so even if a difficult conversation arises, you can say it in a loving tone, a loving way, and deliver the information so that it becomes a co-creative, solution-oriented situation for whatever is taking place.
Yes. When you were speaking, Dawn, it reminded me of a really powerful lesson I learned in the Xhosa village. I asked to speak to the matriarch. And so this is a part of South Africa that they still live in huts, and there's like no running water, and they've got like one bulb in a building, like very little modern things. And in that part of the world, there was apartheid. So when we went, they were like, why do you want to talk to us, kind of thing. It was like a bunch of like white women, privileged white women coming, to their thing. And they wanted to know. And I said, well, there's, I think, a lot that we can learn from you. And we're just here really with an open heart and just curious, like how life is for you. And so they started to speak about that. And as they were speaking about the atrocities that had happened to their people, we were all starting to cry. And the elder stood up and she stomped and like banged her hand. She said, no, that is our pain, is my pain. I process it. You don't process my pain for me.
Wow.
And it was
profound.
Other level of like sovereignty, because I was like, oh, because in the Western culture, I find there's an element of victimology where we expect other people to take on the pains of the things that we've been through and to feel bad and guilty about it. And she was adamant that that was disrespectful. And so I learned a lot in that moment. I was super humbled and so grateful of her big stomp, when she's a tiny little lady, like hardly any teeth. But when she stomped, the whole hut like shook, and it was just an incredible experience. And I think that we can learn a lot about seeing each other as powerful. Like really, that is one exercise that can go quite deep.
Yes, it can. Oh, I twinkle you here. It's such a powerful, thank you for bringing this forward today. It feels so good to honor the sovereignty and speak about it and share. It's such a delicious conversation. I'm really in deep awe and gratitude right now.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I have another show called Straight Talk on Friday nights, and we've done a couple sovereignty pieces. And what I love is everyone's definition of it, like what freedom looks like, or what walking in your integrity looks like. I'm gonna weave. What I love about sovereignty, what I love about this, the way that we choose to see everyone as whole and in their royalty and in their integrity, that when we show up in that place, that we honor them with our courage, and we honor them with seeing them as a as like the vast expression of God that they are. And in that, when I say, Saida, I have this deep desire, or I have this pain, or I have this thing, and I'm courageous to be vulnerable with you. That what I find happens is that you get to show up in your fullness in that moment. And that's what I think is a piece of sovereignty, right? That living in your sovereignty, or hearing your body, hearing what your body is truly saying, and honoring that as a form of self-love, as a form of your sovereignty, listening to your, you know, yeah, listening to the driving force, that juicy chi force that rises up from your perineum, from your heart into your heart and into your voice, into the movement of your world and your first chakras. It's like that place. When you listen to that, it's telling you your desires, your heart desires, your mind desires, your sexual desires are really showing you the path to your freedom. And what I mean by freedom is the place where you're not limiting your imagination. And so I'd love to start weaving the conversation from sovereignty into desire.
Yeah, nice.
How we get there.
Yeah. Well, let's define desire. I have very specific definitions. When I did a TEDx talk on desire, and when I was and I wrote a book on it, and I was like, okay, well, there's a million books on desire, and there's a lot of people saying it's related to suffering, and there's, whole like systems put in place to like deal with punishment around desire. And I mean, it's like a really controversial topic for a very, very long time. So I was thinking, like, how is this possible? And what is it exactly? And is it truly that sinful? And what's its actual purpose? And why does it exist? I had all of these questions, and I wasn't accepting the definitions that were being offered to me. They didn't feel true in my lived experience. So what I started discovering for me is that, like, what if desire was an actual force of nature that is responsible for nothing to become something? In order for non-existence to become existence, there needs to be a spark. And that is the force of nature of desire. And that this force of nature then has an evolutionary component, so that which needed to emerge 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 10,000 years ago is very different than now, because it's evolving. And so it's emergent, meaning it's revealing itself as we progress. And it's also evolutionary, meaning it's building on what has already come and calling us to the next iteration of what's possible. So if that's true, then it's in all things. And if it's in all things, how does it show up in the human being? And for me then, and I think, Dawn, you might be able to speak to this a bit, it's the visceral voice. So it's the somatic voice, the voice of the body, the physicality of one's own essence. And our essence speaks to us through ache or yearning or tingling. Like, there's different sensations that arise that we label, desire in its different forms. And it captures our attention, and it motivates us first maybe to catch our breath, but then maybe eventually to take action. It's very formative. And so this is crucial, because if we understand that we have a direct link to our own essence, and it's speaking to us through this modality called desire, wouldn't we then view a desire as a sacred experience? And then wouldn't we actually start to want to unpack how it gets hijacked? Because it's hijacked desires that are the problem, not true desires. So I'll just leave it at that, but that's my kind of overall definition of desire and its deeper purpose in our journey.
Ooh, that's so delicious.
Desire as a deep inner knowing, as a movement, as a creative force. and honoring that is crucial to moving into your self-love and to loving others.
Yeah. It's also crucial, I'm going to dare say this, it's
Oh.
crucial to transform the world, because desire has, what I realize is that desire comes in the form of a symphony. And within the symphony, there's different kind of songs, let's say. The most obvious one would be sexuality, the desire for sex, right? That's a very obvious one. But there's also the desire to know love in a very deep way. There's also this huge unshakable desire for some, not all, to create a family. Like, it's a big desire. Then right now, in the times that we're facing, the desire to thrive, like to actually thrive, not just survive, is like a massive call. Then for some, there's rapture, which to me is the desire to know the divine in whatever shape it takes in your life. It's this calling to know that, this ache to know that. And then the one I wanted to speak to now is contribution. And it's this ache, this need to be able to contribute something of value that actually lends to moving the needle forward for ourselves, for our families, communities, and the world at large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to all of that.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the movement. Your desires will change the world if in alignment and in attunement and calibration with your integrity and your authenticity.
Yes.
While negotiating reality with another person.
Exactly. So for me, that's how desire becomes a compass, the true desires. Because when we know, like, the question would be to ask, no matter what's going on around you. Yes, I get that it's all crazy and chaotic and da-da-da, but what would I love right now in this situation? And that is then coming into right relationship with the deeper compass of desire to live a life that's really expressing that essence, because the essence is constantly communicating and it's making you ache for things.
Yes.
Now that does get hijacked. So when it gets hijacked, that's the homework.
Yes.
And
Can you
recognizing.
Give more instruction around what, so our viewers really understand what hijacked means? I would love just a deeper explanation of what that means for our.
So like it sounds, say you have a true desire, let's say love, okay? So you really want to be in love and you want to know deep love and you want to have your beloved and you're aching and where is the one? And you're up in the middle of the night dreaming and aching about it and then whatever. So there's this thing that's pulling you towards wanting that.
Mm-hmm.
Hijacked desire would be the mandates and ideals that you grew up in your family, for example, in your culture, in what's around you. So this appears like maybe a list. They've got to make this much money and drive this kind of car and look this way and talk this way. And it's really a very thorough descriptive list. And that can hijack the true desire of being met deeply in love, because now you're not allowing for the true desire, which is to be met deeply in love, to emerge in the way that it wants to. And you try and shape it into what this looks like. So you're going to go towards an ideal, overriding, you won't even pay attention that it's not the right situation because these things get ticked off your list. And then you wonder why you're dissatisfied or it doesn't work out, or, there's a learning and growth in that. So that's fine. But there is a moment where if you stop yourself and go, wait a second, what is it that I deeply desire here? Mm-hmm. And I deeply desire to be met in love. It's not happening, even though everything's ticked off this list. I'm actually not being met here. Mm-hmm. And that then becomes a sovereign act to go, thank you very much. It's been a journey, and yet this isn't actually what I ache for.
Oh, profound.
What I ached for. So often I say what we want, what we think we want, isn't actually what we want. Yeah.
How timely. Because I'm sure it's not right. So from how I understand it, from a compassionate communication standpoint, this looks a little like we're driven by our wants, needs, and desires. Like, this is just how it is. So our thoughts are programmed, right, in some capacity from our cultures, and we dissolve those. What?
So that's the hijack part.
That's the hijack. So it's like, oh, I live in a monogamous culture that looks like this, and I have to do this. And so it takes some time to kind of like really dissolve that and get down into, you know, to drop down into, okay, hold on, I'm just gonna slow down because I'm excited. So it takes really conscious awareness to access that your brain is telling you things based on a program or a construct or an idea that you've had, that you've been told, or that you liked in some way, that you categorize that in your brain as love or as whatever it is that you want. We'll stay with love because that's a good, easy one. And then to finally just like access your feelings about it, to access the deepness of that, and then to drop into that want and that longing, the true longing, the desire there that's really driving. So just to share vulnerably that this is connection is a deep, like, it's a motivating desire for me. It is literally what drives me forward. And I can walk that little path that I just took from my brain to my wants, needs, and desires through my feelings and access those points. Like, I can speak to it and I'm like, okay, why am I doing this behavior right now? Because this seems counterintuitive, or this seems like, is this actually in alignment? Like, what would I love right now? Like, is this alive? Is this true alignment with my integrity and with my authenticity? And when I love that you said, because I had this experience recently, I'll just share because it's so literally up, is that I had an experience with a client that their share and their experience with me hit a deep longing that I didn't know was there. And it struck me so much that I left the session and I like sat in the car and I wept. I was driving and I was like crying and I was like, and it's just his sharing about his desire to be devoted to love, not to the toxic monogamous devotional self-abandonment piece, but this devotion to accepting and loving the capacity of loving essence or seeing God in another. And it hit me so hard that I was like just stunned and bawling in the car, because I was like, oh my God, I also share in that deep devotional, that desire for devotional love. That it's that godly love, that to share that, seeing not just your humanness, Saida or Dawn, but to unzip that place and to see your full rawness of, so it was just so good. So thank you for being and on point.
How perfectly timely. We were speaking about this before the show, so it's like, it's perfect that it's arising.
So in my experience, the hijacked version would have you externally focused.
Yes.
And in my understanding of how this force of nature works, it's never about finally finding the one and having forever and ever. It's a process of blossoming into what does it mean to be deeply loving in the now, even if there's no one around.
Yes.
Are you your own most best lover? Would you fall in love with yourself? Would you want to relate with yourself? And can you use ordinary little moments to share in your deep heart, whether it's with a flower or a little cat, the sunset, or a stranger? I don't care. But are you willing to have a love affair with life itself? Because that is the true desire, this 24/7 expression of the profundity of constantly opening to love.
Yes.
And not having conditions and not having like this preset ideal that we have to live up to, because that is not love. That's obsession. It's forms of control. It's forms of, I don't know, it's imprisonment, but it's not love. Love to me is profound respect. And when that's intact here, then I can extend it outwardly. And then why not practice? Why do I have to wait for the one to show up before I practice?
I always believe that So I was once one of those girls that wrote lists.
Me too.
Me too.
And I write all these lists out, and there was never like things that I needed, like, oh, yes, to have. I mean, there were a couple things. There was like, can they please have like a car so that we can visit each other? Like that was like my basic list. But I found myself writing a list of qualities that I want, and it occurred to me that to magnetize that, I really had to embody those qualities. And so I just set off on the journey to that right there. Is like, can I embody that moment? And I wanted to bring in this other thought that I was having, which is part of my life, and I think that it's part of your life too, and Dawn's life, is that moving from not only desire, but moving from that place of loving, and it's going to come out funny, and I know it, loving the pain. Can I be with the pain without pushing it away? The pain of just life. Like there's suffering in life. We're human beings. This is just how it is. There's discomfort. And to be with that place, and just instead of being like, oh, that's not what I want, or that's not what is in my highest, most beneficial purpose, but actually just to be like, this is what I love.
Yes.
I can love this place. So, the part of me, while I was sitting in the car crying, part of me wanted to shame myself, or to be like, oh my gosh, devotional love. Like, oh, what is that? And the brain was like doing this thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that, because I know that if I want to resist it, then I'm going to create more of what's not serving me. So can I just be in this deeply vulnerable space to say, yes, I want devotional love for myself. I want to go up in devotional love of God and devotional. Yes. And I just sat there, and I was like, of course, that just made me weep harder. But it's walking in that place of being, and rather than the external, like, I want that, and pulling, which it is a form of control and manipulation. Just being.
Yes.
I'm so fortunate, because I realized through our sharing, I'm sitting here listening, and all the little bits and pieces that you brought forward, Dr. Saida and Trish, you both are speaking about this physical, visceral experience that I've had, along the journey of manifesting my divine mate. Like I made the list, right? But I decided when I was making the list, all the qualities on the list were actually about me. And what was my side, what was I bringing to the table in this relationship? So I was already looking at it like that, even though he hadn't shown up, right? And I was on that journey of manifesting him. This is many years ago. But it's like, even down to like, that putting the extra fork down on the table when I was like setting my own, when I was single, I literally would, even if I didn't physically do it, I would pretend that I did. I'd be like, oh, there you go. I would include them and I'd get in the car. And I tell this to like clients that are seeking love, I say, include them, like already energetically embody them there. Like you're holding their hand everywhere you go. Like you're having these deep engaged experiences already, and it's so interesting, because I would always include them getting in my car and walking me to my door. And to this day, now 18 years later, my husband walks me to my car door still to this day. Like, and it's like such a reminder of like that true desire that was in my heart to just have true love and experience like deep, embodied, unconditional love, right? And with the acceptance of all of the things that come forward, right, in his life experience and mine, and that it's shared. And regardless of how that shared looks, there's always going to be unconditional love and acceptance there for the growth that's taking place. But it's just so sweet, because that's such an enjoyed experience. Like I literally gave myself that visceral experience of manifestation and being tuned in to my desire, and not letting it be hijacked. Even though I did have a list, I maintained that connection to my true, authentic offering to the universe of like that devotional love, right? Because I decided that I renounced marriage. I was like, nope, it's not for me, because I was breaking that chain of like relationships that didn't work. And I was like, you know what, if it's not going to be like the real deal, authentic then I don't want to do it, because this is the relationship I'm most concerned with, is my relationship with Source, God, Spirit. And that's most important, and that devotional love. And I even married myself twice before I ever got married, right? Because it was like I was very serious with Spirit, that I was all in with my devotional relationship with Spirit, like all in, fully embodied.
That's so beautiful. You point to something important in the practice of attuning oneself to that inner compass, as an act of self-love. And one of the reasons I think we're terrified of leaning into true desires, because just whispering it into our own hearts can feel incredibly vulnerable, because we're like, I don't even know how this is going to happen. We can't fathom it even occurring, or maybe we don't feel worthy of the thing occurring. And so just to be able to admit it, we would rather instead pursue the hijacked version or deny that we have these desires, because in accepting we have them, there's a vulnerability. And yeah, I mean, it's huge. So the process of self-love is, as Trish was also saying, like being able to sit in your own stuff that arises when you name something you would really love and ache for. And it can be embarrassing. Like Trish is like, devotional love, I'm a wild creature, you know, my identity doesn't allow for this to exist, you know.
She knows me so well.
So there can be a death process to our own way we have formed our persona, like how we like navigate through space, perhaps actually has to change. So it does make room, like Dawn you were doing with your practice of including. It's a little bit weird, right? To like think that way, but why not? Because it's an energetic yes. So you were already behaving like you were in a relational field. That's really vulnerable. It's very edgy. And for many, it's too much, because they're like, I just can't. So I think that's one of the other practices with really living in alignment with that compass and following that compass. First, just admit it. Even if it's just the deeper secrets of your own heart, like just, wow, I actually would love that. And feel how the vulnerability, the tenderness of saying yes to something you don't understand how it's going to come to be. And I don't ever think it's going to be the way we think it is. I think when we have a true desire, it's just simply making us take that one obvious step toward it. Yes. And then there's this evolutionary piece. So by the time we get where we thought we were going, it's a very different arrival point, but then it's still emerging and evolving. So you're like, oh, there is no end point. This is like life is a continual unfolding. So even though you have your partner, for you to actually cherish each other and continue to see each other as these beloveds, it is a practice. You cannot take each other for granted. You can't take that off your to-do list. Every day you need to make the choice for deep love.
It's a constant renewal.
Yes.
And a choosing of each other.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's freedom, because no matter, even with wedding vows, you're not caged in. They're free to go at any moment, and you're free to go at any moment. And the fact that you don't, the fact that you choose every day to be together is like a sacred offering, not just to each other, but to life itself. And actually, the original marriage, long before there was, say, like a Christian version of marriage, it came from an ancient Greek tradition where couples wanted their love, like all the expressions of their love, to be like a sacred offering to Aphrodite, to this goddess of love. And so they would get blessed by the priestesses of Aphrodite. Her name is Mari, marriage. She was emerging from the sea foam. So the original marriage was simply a blessing, that every act of love between a couple was a sacred offering to the divine.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I love that.
Commitment to self,
Yes.
commitment to love,
Yes.
and knowing that love is even more vast than these sort of definitions that we can give it.
Yes.
Even respect or acceptance is only just like a sliver of what those words mean even.
Mhm.
Dr. Said, I'm really deeply touched by the sharing today. Thank you, Dawn, as well. I'm wondering if you had a practice that you wanted to lead our viewers through.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a very simple practice. It's a somatic practice, but it allows for the heart to relax and it allows for connection to self. So the practice is just heating up the hands and then placing the hands over the chest, the heart area, and closing your eyes. And just for a moment, recalling the most beautiful smile you've seen recently. Maybe it's a child or someone you care for, or even the smile of a stranger that has lit you up. And imagine that smile that you witnessed is almost like sunlight. And as you're imagining that smile and that sunlight, pull that into yourself. Let yourself receive the smile, receive the light, sunlight, and imagine bathing the entire area of your chest, but especially around your physical heart. And so as you breathe, I want you to imagine that the breath creates more space around your heart. So as you breathe in, you're kind of stretching open the area around your heart. And as you breathe out, you're kind of melting and releasing and relaxing the area around the heart. And just do that for a couple breaths, remembering that warmth, that smile, and bringing that into your own body, your own heart. And then releasing and melting, relaxing, smiling into your own heart. And let's do one more. Just this time we'll do a sigh as we exhale. So just breathing in, connecting with yourself. And as you sigh, just releasing a deeper level of tension. Just ah. And then for a moment, as you're breathing and noticing your own heart space, I'd like you to just take a moment right now and feel into what is it that you would love, like dare right now to lean into, right in this moment, this time of your life. There's something that's calling you. There's something that wants your attention. Something maybe you haven't dared admitting to or look at. So just for a moment, as you continue to breathe, nice slow breaths, relaxing the area around your heart, allowing what you would love to start to become more available to your awareness. And as it becomes more available to your awareness, even if it doesn't have a full shape yet, allowing yourself just to welcome it, to allow it to exist. That's all we have to do right now. So just breathing, and maybe inwardly you're saying the word allow, and you're allowing this ache, this desire, this yearning, this thing that you would love to just take up some space in your heart. Give it a moment, almost like you're placing it on the altar of your heart. And notice how you feel about this. It could just be even a sensation, a little hint, a little sniff of what's possible. And notice your relationship to that. And even if you don't know the full shape or the how it's going to possibly happen, are you willing just for now to let it exist? And take some time every day to just sit with this desire and to let it exist and to have a moment where you just really allow yourself to explore it. And then I want you to imagine, as you do this a little bit more and you get more familiar with your desire, what would it feel like in your body if you actually got that thing, whatever that is, if it actually came true, if there was a full manifestation of this very thing you ache for? What would happen? How does it feel like throughout your body? Are you relaxed? Are you excited? Are you turned on? Are you peaceful? Do you have rapture? And notice the felt state, the state of being that you enter when the thing that you most ache for is fulfilled. And just take a moment to kind of marinate in the possibility of that fulfillment. Just breathing nice full breaths, allowing the possibility to exist, exploring it, giving it texture and shape and smell and taste. And then, if you dare, ask yourself, well, what would I need to do today, here and now, to take one tiny step toward that? And notice it's going to be really ordinary and obvious. And then actually dare to do that. This is desire connected to your heart, connected to fulfillment, connected to the obvious, and then coming to fruition in a simple and ordinary step. And then in a moment, we'll end this little practice and just spend a moment right now to feel grateful that you dared to explore something that had meaning and beauty to your heart, and that is actually worthy of your attention. And it is a deep act of self-love to take the time to articulate and form for yourself what it is that you long for, what is it that you would love to have more of in your life. And we're going to take one last breath, a big breath into the heart, giving thanks to your heart. And sighing as you exhale and just letting go. Just then rubbing your hands. Just brush your face. Opening your eyes. And then notice what emerged. What did you discover? And the more you practice that, the more you will have, it's kind of like lubricating those neural pathways of possibility. And then whether or not you actually get the thing you think you want, because you're marinating in the fulfillment of it, the felt state of the fulfillment of it, you already have it. And that's the secret to allowing the desire to be your compass, is experiencing that very thing in the here and now. So thank you, Trish. Thank you, Dawn. And thank you to the viewers for playing.
Yes.
It's a beautiful practice to allow yourself to. I love that you said steep, because I often think about like being in someone's energy is like steeping in a tea bag with them. It's like steeping in a hot bowl of tea. And I love the embodying and experiencing the fulfillment of something from within, because your brain and your body will follow, right? So for me, what I got, it's not like nailed in, but it is about.
And when you experience, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are you muted?
Oh, no.
Oh, so I was saying the beauty of fulfillment, like when you can marinate in the felt state. I don't think I'm muted.
Yes, you're good.
It's just a funny connection now. So I was saying when we marinate in the fulfillment, so we marinate in that fulfillment, sometimes we come to a realization that we no longer long for it.
Wow.
because we've tasted it. And then the desire has a space to evolve into something even deeper and more accurate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I got was, what does it look like to be in devotional love, to walk in devotional love every day? Which is a slightly different version of the way that I've been walking in love. It is a deepening to a path that I've been on for some time. And it's, yeah, it sounds like it's really fun. Like, what does devotion mean? What is devoted to love look like? And then it gave me a really warm feeling in my chest, and I felt my chest and my shoulders relax. And what I also kind of like, there was like blips of imagery. That's how my brain works. And around devotional love of self, or to self and to God. I don't see those things as being separate. Self, other, and God are the same. So what does it look like to embody that practice within, to express that outward? There's a little bit of my experience through your practice. Thank you.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. And for me, I got a really also warm sensation as well. And I first started with one desire, but then like two others came forward just organically in it, because I was just feeling in that feeling state. And I really was in a place of awe, of acknowledging myself, of how I'm very attuned to that sacred desire that bubbles forth. And I'm already baby stepping my way there in my world and in my life, and acknowledging that that desire is pulling me forward into what they are, and it's already taking place. Like, so I just sat in gratitude in the experience of knowing that it's evolving through me, and that I'm aware of it, you know, and that it's permeating my whole being. So that was just like that pure state of just love and adoration and thankfulness and gratitude for just, you know, that Creator gives us the desire, and then it beckons us forward when we say yes. And that felt so good to just fully acknowledge that happening organically.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, I feel so good. So thank you. Really, truly, thank you. You're light, and you're just such a joy to experience today. And I know that everyone that works with you is so blessed to have your enlightened state of like living in the desire and in the pleasure, and finding that yes inside is so magical. So thank you for bringing your magic and your light to the world in this way. I feel so honored to share in it today on the show.
Yes, I'm very honored as well, for both of you, and for this platform, and for the viewers as well, and for the hearts of the viewer, and the vulnerability and the beauty of each of us as sovereign beings that think of your desire almost like your raison d'être. It's a French thing to say, like your reason for being. And there's like this prime directive in your essence, and your desires are just like uncoding that in a way that is leading you to living your best life, if you're willing to listen and slow down and honor and say yes. And just that's it, just the saying yes.
My friend who's taking your classes and your workshops, Haley, says hi. She said, sends your love. I was like, okay, I will. And if you love Dr. Saida, I have linked all of her links. I have put them in the box, so go click on them and find her literally everywhere. And if you're just now tuning in, go back to that practice and go back to the conversation with so much depth and honesty and connection, and just juice was shared today. So thank you so much for your time, your energy, your life's work, and for your desire. Thank you for your desire to walk in the world in that way and teaching us all how to live a more loving and connected life. Thank you.
Oh, and for those viewers tuning in that are beautiful women that have been in a love life and in a love relationship, let's say, that maybe you've experienced some imbalance and you're wanting to really lean into the next level of love and deepen it and come home to a place of deeper trust, deeper love, and really creating that deeper foundation in your love life, then I just invite you to join Reclaiming Trust. It's a really beautiful group. We would love to have you in it. And yeah, it's a great place of exploration of these topics. So come on over and enjoy the freebies that are in the group and the beautiful women that are there participating. We would love to have you. Did she drop off?
The power went out. It's so perfect. I love things like that. It's great. Yeah, she just texted me and says the power went out.
Oh, wow. That's perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
I also wanted to say for our viewers tuning in case this is your first time, we do have a YouTube channel, and on the Self-Love Show page, there's a link you can go to. That's the website. It's a link tree, Spark Your Inner Gold, and that has all the links for everything. So everything is there. Please go check out our YouTube channel, like, share, and subscribe. We're finally reaching higher numbers, and it's so exciting. Thank you for the viewers that tune in weekly. We're so stoked to do this show and to continue. Trish and I love it. We love you. We love your feedback also. So if you have a show that's like, hey, burning desire, I want to know this topic, we'll absolutely love your input. And we just are on the journey and the journey of like what this is, right? It's so fun doing this weekly.
Oh, and I want to say a special thank you to Scott Thomas, Love Coach Academy, Sign Network, and the Global Peace Tribe. Thank you for to walk with us. And
yes,
we're pleased to walk with you too.
Yes.
And for all of you still here, see you next week, Thursday mornings at 10 a.m.
Have an epic week. We love you.